Hi everyone, this is Everyday Expressions and I'm Erin Thompson. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to participate in Altenew's latest Build a Flower Indian Lotus blog hop. This beautiful floral layered stamp set has sentiments to encourage and promote self-confidence. So let's get started with this fun eclipse slimline card I've created for you today. So I begin by taking an 8 1/4 by 3 1/4 panel, and I find the middle, mark it with a pencil, and put it in my MISTI. Then I take this is actually the 4th layer in the guide for this stamp set. Place that in the MISTI, find it in the middle, secure it, and then I actually erase that pencil mark, because what happens is there are many types of dye ink that if you stamp over a pencil mark, you can no longer erase it later on. So that's my special tip for you today. So I'm using 7 ink colors to stamp today. And what happens is the actual yellow and green are the 2 middle colors. So I move my panel down in the MISTI to kind of offset the yellow, so that once the yellow and the green are stamped, they will actually kind of meet up in the middle of that panel. Does that make sense? I hope so. So the other important thing to remember is if you're using your MISTI, if you keep the panel flush with the bottom of the MISTI, then all of your stamped images are going to come out in a perfectly straight row. So it makes it really easy when you use this tool. So for my rainbow colors, I actually begin with yellow, and that first color is fresh lemon, green is firefly, then tide blue, and then I end with the purple is ultraviolet, orange is orange cream, and then heartbeat for red. Doesn't that make such a pretty rainbow? I love it. So now I'm ready for the shaded area of the lotus. I remove the other stamp, and now I select the 3rd layer in the layering guide for the shaded area. I place it perfectly over the yellow lotus and then secure it in my MISTI. Now, once again for this process, I'll move the panel up and down and make sure you clean your stamp in between each color. And that way, as you're kind of checking to make sure it's perfectly aligned, you aren't getting any transfer of color where you don't want it. So I just move the panel up and down again, same process, just making sure that it's perfectly aligned each time. And this time I'm using, starting with yellow, I'm using citrus burst, grass field, turquoise, hydrangea, and then I finish with sun-kissed for orange and coral bliss for the red. And there you go. Now we've got pretty outline and shaded areas in our rainbow lotus. So then I decided that it needed just a little something. So I have these Zig colorless blender pens, and they work fabulously with water-based dye inks. And I have several in my stash to kind of coordinate with each color family, so that way I don't get any cross-contamination. But all you have to do is kind of dab it into your ink pad, load up the nib, and then I just made little dots on closer to the flower, they're closer together, and then it looks kind of like they're dispersing. And all you have to do to clean your marker off in between each color is to kind of scribble it off on a piece of scratch paper. And I do this just with every color all the way down, and I just think it added a nice little touch to the panel. What do you think? I love it. So then we're going to move on to the eclipse part, and I use the Mega Greetings Friend die. Place this in the middle of that stamped panel, and then here's my next tip. I transfer the entire die cut piece on that shim or cutting plate for my vagabond. I move that to my craft table and place each of these pieces, including every little tiny bit from inside the word. Don't lose those. Don't throw them away. There are so many times I'll lose that dot for the I or that little tiny piece in an E. So to create the stacked images of the eclipse, I just cut 4 or 5 pieces from like a heavyweight white cardstock. And what I like to do is leave the first one in the negative cut cardstock, and then I layer up the other pieces on top of that. And what this does is sometimes when you have a scripty kind of die piece, it'll get a little wonky. The letters want to stretch out, and this way they remain exactly where they should be and nice and neat. So I do about 4 or 5 to create a nice kind of height on my eclipse, and then pull those out, and then I adhere the original cut piece from the stamped panel onto those stacked images. And then I'll place it right back into the original stamped panel and make sure that everything's straight and adhered correctly. And I will even place some heavyweight stamping blocks on there. Once I fiddle with it and get it exactly the way I want it, I will add those heavyweight blocks so that it gives it time to dry and everything stays exactly where I want it. And don't forget the dot for your eye. That always seems to be the piece that goes missing, and I get so frustrated when I can't find it. So now I just use a piece of the Altenew Deep Iris cardstock for my pretty purple background panel. I use a tape runner for the outside, and then I like to use my glue for all the little pieces around the die cut image. And then I will adhere this to my card. And then we'll add in the stacked eclipse. Piece it right back in there. And I just like to go right into that negative area with my glue, and it just makes it so easy to adhere that friend sentiment. Easier than trying to do it right there on that die cut. Piece it back in, and then this is where you're going to add your stacked dot to your eye, and then I'm going to make sure I add in all those little bits that I had saved. And I like to use a jewel picker. The sticky end will help place it, and then the little pokey end just helps pop it right in there. And that's why keeping all of those little pieces really finishes the look to an eclipse card. So to finish the card, I just stamp a happy birthday sentiment and add some drops for embellishment. What do you think? Thank you so much for joining me in my craft room today. And don't forget to hop along with the other designers and leave comments for your chance to win an Altenew gift certificate. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I can't wait to see what you create with this beautiful layered floral stamp set from Altenew.